Okay, let me give you feedback on your PowerPoint. So this is going to be the main theme of the lesson, a balanced diet. The meat of the presentation starts from the second slide. So you probably don't really show this to the whole class, but let me give you a little advice on how to use the opening slide more effectively. In general, using pictures or images on our opening slide is a really good idea, good practice, because it draws more attention and grabs more attention. Increase the expectation that this lecture or presentation is going to be good. So increase the motivation of the viewers or learners. And when I look at all the slides, you have pre-designed background theme. If it's visible on the slide, people are going to look at it. And if it's not pertaining to the actual core message that you're presenting, then it works as a noise. Consciously or unconsciously, it's going to work as a noise. So you want to avoid that. You want to pare down to only the essentials. Okay, you did a pretty good job in terms of the image size. Image quality could be a little better, but it might be acceptable. I see a little more space, available space on a slide, so let me just rearrange things around a little bit. Okay, I'm going to move the title, slide title up a little bit, so there's more space below now, so that means you can make the picture larger. The most important thing here is to show this as clearly as possible, as large as possible, so they can see the details better. So anything you can do to make this image larger is a good thing. And also the background is definitely competing with the subject main item on the slide. So let's change the background a little. I went ahead and changed the background design for all the slides. I took out the patterns. So now let's think about what you want your audience to see in this image or on this slide. You want them to look at the serving size in calories, and you use the arrows. That's a pretty good idea, to use arrows to direct the learner's attention to those 2 points. Well, if you're projecting onto a smart board, you can also circle them, underline them, to make sure they look at those 2 places as you talk about them. And of course, you can also use a shape tool. If necessary, you can also animate them so that they will show up when you click on the mouse button. And you're talking about my plate, and you could apply the multimedia principle a little better by enlarging the image to fill the whole screen in this case. And I wouldn't even bother to place my plate over it, because it says my plate right here. So you don't have to place extra elements unnecessarily. This is going to take care of it. And now it's much larger, because the original picture was pretty big. Enlarging didn't make it pixelated or blurry. So you chose a really good photo. To make the best use of the high quality image, you could definitely enlarge it. Instead of stopping it right here, what I suggest you do is always try this. And if it doesn't work for several different reasons, then you could adjust the size and the positioning. But in many cases, this is going to work well. Now you're talking about grains. Showing an example of grains, that's a good thing, because it's sometimes difficult to visualize. So what things are a grain? Don't be afraid to use the image like this. Don't be afraid to increase the image size when you show the image on the slide. Traditionally, people have been using the images like this. That's just a traditional, customary way. Doesn't mean it's a good way to do it. So try to show the details as much as possible. Think about what you want to show. So you definitely want to show each item clearly. So make it bigger is better. To make it even better, you could use a special contiguity principle so that you integrate these text into the image. For first graders, there could be some people who are not used to making connections by going back and forth like this. It's all about how you're going to present it, but you're going to have to show how to figure out the 6 ounces. Sometimes in health experts use the hand or fist size. One fist, one knuckle is 1 portion or something like that. So if you can somehow incorporate that into your lesson, that's okay. But otherwise, just saying 6 ounces may not be enough. So if you can somehow incorporate the more graphic representations into this, then this 6 ounce maybe make more sense. So you can do something like this, and if you're projecting it onto a whiteboard or something like that, you might actually use a pen to draw the portion for the 6 ounces using this picture. And also one thing you can do for better organization and transitioning is to create a transitioning slide like this. So now you're moving to grains. So I kind of masked the other categories. Then moving into details about the grains. And here, instead of just saying grain, I put the image from this. So now there's a better temporal contiguity. Now it is easier to understand that this is a continuation from this. And if there are no better way to show the portions graphically, then at least you can make the text larger so that it will have slightly more impact. As I say, you can draw on this image to show that portion for 6 ounces. So now you move into dairy, and instead of jumping into a dairy, you might want to pause a little bit. So now let's move to a dairy kind of thing. So when you say that, you could signal with the image. You can use something like this to show that now you're moving on to, the dairy section. Then show this. And this could help your students organize the sequence in their head better. So these are the examples: milk, cheese, yogurt, tofu. And you're not really showing tofu in here, so it's better if you can actually show these images. Having them find those items in this image may not be easy. Let's see. Obviously, you want to make it as large as possible to begin with. It's showing the milk and yogurt really well. Okay. Again, rather than showing the text and the image separately, you might want to actually integrate them together. You were talking about only 4, so it's not a bad idea to actually show all 4 different items. So you're showing milk and the yogurt for sure in this picture, but this is not going to do the others. So one thing you could do is divide this screen in quarters, then place each item like this, 1. So you could place milk here, for example, and the cheese here, and the yogurt here, and the tofu here. Oh, and the tofu here. Wait, tofu is dairy? Really? You might want to double check it. Tofu may not be dairy. Because this is made of beans, soybeans. I see a watermark on this image, so you might want to find something without the watermark. And you want to start with a large image. So try to increase the image size first, and it gets pixelated. So original picture must have been pretty small to begin with. So find a picture with much higher resolution so you can enlarge the image to cover the whole screen, and still you can see the details clearly. And I think it's better to integrate the labels into the image as well. One thing is you're saying broccoli, but not showing broccoli, so you can't really do that with this image. So if you're going to list lettuce, carrots, and broccoli, you definitely want to have lettuce, carrots, and broccoli in the picture as well. In this way, you can use a technique of integrating these labels into the image. You can have the picture right on the slide like this, and you can put the text right over those vegetables. Or you can follow the same suggestion, because if you're going to just talk about 3 different things, then you put 3 pictures here, 1, 2, and 3 separately, then label them separately as well. And the portion 2.5 cups is really hard to remember later on. So if you can show the size graphically, or you can use a hand, or you can use a fist. 1 fist is 1 cup or something like that. Well, not really sure how it works, but kids' hands are pretty small, so maybe 2 hands, 2 fists could be 1 cup. You could use that kind of strategy, or you can actually show on a slide graphically to show, you could spend some time and find 2.5 cups of lettuce, 2.5 cups of carrots, and 2.5 cups of broccoli, and then post them there. That's actually the best way to go. for all these. Now you are listing berries, oranges, and melons. And you have berries, strawberries, and oranges, but this is a kiwi, so it's not exactly melon. Again, the best approach after going through all these slides would be showing them separately. Try to find pictures that illustrate 2 cups of berries, 2 cups of oranges, and 2 cups of melons. That would be perfect. If you're really focusing on these 3, if you want to make sure that they know the portions, fusing or combining the portion with the actual graphic representation would be the best way to go. And of course, you want to integrate the labels into the image as well. Right now, these are kind of separate. So it takes some mental processing to transform the images or concept and combine them together. If they can do that successfully, that's a good learning. But if they fail to do so, judging from their grade level, they're first graders, so judging from their cognitive development, that is definitely too much of a work. It's not saying that they can't do that, but they will probably miss a lot of things in the process. So by combining these elements from the beginning, then they have a better chance of succeeding in terms of making connections between portions, appearance, and the labels. You are listing 5 different negative consequences for poor diet here. These are pretty much self-explanatory, easy concepts to grasp, even for the first graders. But I'm not really sure about this. How many people know what obesity implies and what it entails, or what it looks like? My suggestion is actually to show visual representation for each. For one reason, you're showing the image so to aid their comprehension, and comprehending these 3, 4, that's pretty easy. But it's not going to stop you from actually showing the pictures, because there's another reason that you want to show pictures. Graphics have much stronger impact on our brains. So by showing pictures, first of all, it's much easier to visualize. And if you don't have the prior knowledge, visual is a must. Or if you only have limited knowledge about these things, then visual graphic representation is a must. And also, because of the stronger impact on our brain, if you try to remember what we learned today, later, maybe tomorrow, if you try to remember what we learned the day before, you can remember things better if images were used. Images can definitely work as triggers than text. Sometimes you don't remember the words, but you remember the images. That's better than not remembering anything. So you can show the picture of obesity. It's kind of hard to find a picture of obesity, because obesity is not exactly the appearance, but you could try make some associations between the picture and obesity. And broken bone, easy to show in the picture. Higher rates of illness, you can show a picture of someone coughing or having a cold or something like that, dental problem, you can easily find pictures for that. Lack of nutrients, you can show maybe a picture of some guy with decent fat with no muscle or something like that. And when you show them, you definitely don't want to show that on a single slide. You don't want to put 5 small pictures on a single slide. You don't want to do that. Instead, what you want to do is use 5 different slides so that you can show the picture big. Or if you use the animation, you can just use one slide to make it appear one after another. So you can apply the same idea, same concept. Use visuals. So this is like a transitional slide for the entire lesson. Now you're moving on to group work. So let's think about the graphic design principle. You could definitely eliminate this unnecessary element from the slide. It looks cleaner. That means that your brain's not processing extra things. That means that your brain's processing less items. If it's on the screen, if it's visible on the screen, your brain is going to process it. If the brain doesn't have to process extra items that doesn't pertain to the actual message, then it feels cleaner. That's what's happening in your brain, and that's a good thing. Of course, you can make the better use of the space. So discuss in your group how you want to change your PowerPoint. Take the suggestions I made into considerations. You don't have to apply all my suggestions in your changes. So discuss what changes you want to make. and apply those changes for good reason. I'm looking forward to seeing what changes you're going to make.